Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are so thrilled to have in the studio with us today author Elizabeth St. John. How you doing, Elizabeth?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you today?
Good to see you in person. We had a very robust conversation. I was introduced to her by a friend of mine. I like to call her a friend, at least Deborah Sarah, and author, who was on the show and did great stuff. Says, you need to meet Elizabeth. Mm-hmm. And that's great, which is so apropos because my co-host now for 2 years is the inimitable, Kristen Fogel. She is the executive director of San Diego Writers, Inc., so she knows you, of course, and I think you know her. So I'm just going to let you do the interview. What do you think?
It's right up my alley. I love when we get to talk to authors. It's so amazing. So you've been writing your whole life, I saw, but how did this evolve into writing novels? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so lovely to see you in person.
Likewise,
Kristen. Yeah. And Writers Inc., the best.
Oh, thank you.
I would say to any aspiring writer or seasoned writer, it's a must. You have to join that organization.
Appreciate that.
So writing, yes. I mean, from writing stories when I was 5 years old to writing my first novel when I was 55, I always kept track of stories in between. But it was one of those things. I had a life event that occurred that made me realize that you have to sometimes fulfill your dreams. You can't just saying, one day I'll write a book, one day I'll travel.
Right.
That one day isn't always guaranteed. Mm-hmm. So I just had to sit down and get on with it. And I did.
And where did you start? Did you have an idea already? Did you know I always want to tackle X, or where did that come from?
Yeah. So I've always loved history and I've always loved genealogy, my family history. And probably about 30 years ago, I discovered a 400-year-old diary in the basement of Nottingham Castle. And it was written by my ancestress.
Oh.
And it told the story of her mother who lived in the Tower of London. And it was just extraordinary to sit there and look at this 400-year-old diary and read about my family and read about her history. Just sowed the seed for an extraordinary story. And I'm passionate about women's voices and women's voices in history. So I thought, one day I want to write her story. And so I carried it around with me, and through life and having children and a full-time career, I'm sitting by the photocopying machine and at the PTA meetings and writing notes in a diary and keeping track. And so the idea was bubbling for a long time.
Okay. And then you decide, this is the time I'm going to get started. And
Absolutely.
It's a trilogy, yes? So did it start out as a trilogy, or did that kind of emerge over time?
Oh, it never started out as a trilogy. It didn't even start out as a book to be published.
Okay.
But I sat down at the kitchen table. My daughter was doing her homework. I was doing my writing, and a book came to life. And then I was actually outed by Deborah Sarah, our dear friend, at our book club, we were sitting around saying, what should we read next month? And Deborah piped up and said, well, Liz has written a novel. And it was the first time anyone else had read it. And they loved it. And that gave me the confidence to then publish it. And then it became a bestseller. So
as happens to everybody. That's amazing.
And then I said, I've got to write more. And it became this incredible journey.
That's amazing. So I have so many questions, but
No, fire away.
Drew's just checked out at this point. He's doing his taxes over there.
Actually, Drew, could you get me a coffee?
Yeah.
I'm trying to book myself on a concert tomorrow. No, I'm going to wait till you get through your questions because I'm going to.
So you'll be back in about 2 hours.
Oh
then.
no! Mine's gonna deal with sports.
Oh, I knew that would happen.
Okay, and that's when I check out and get us all coffee.
You'll be checking out.
Yeah.
There was nothing on the questionnaire that had sports, and I know why that there wasn't. Because, but you'll see.
Okay.
You go ask your writing questions.
Okay. So you write this novel. The book club loves it. What happens from there? Do you go get an agent? Do you tell us about that sort of journey?
Yeah. So yes, I did. I actually went and found an agent, and I pitched the book to an agent. She loved it, and she came back to me and said, "Love it. Could you please pare it down to 90,000 words and make it a happy ending?" And I went, "Actually, it's biographical historical fiction. It's true.
Yeah.
So, and I love it just the way it is. And I'd love to work with you, but no, it needs to be 130,000 words, which is at the high end for historical fiction.
Sure.
And no, I can't change the ending." And so we had a nice back and forth. And she said, "Well, come back to me if you ever change your mind." And then I started exploring independent publishing. And it was just really at the start of that. This was back in 2015. So people were starting to independently publish. There was that opportunity to do that. And I thought, well, I may as well. I would like my story to be out there. So I kind of explored how to find a great editor, how to find a great cover designer. I joined the Historical Novel Society, which is an extraordinary national organization. Went to their conference and met some wonderful people and decided that I could actually try and do that myself. And that's what happened.
That's amazing.
Isn't that how you got started?
Yeah, it's same exact story. My roots growing up abroad. No, none of that. But it's always fascinating to hear the various ways that people get involved and where it takes you.
Well, and I love the story, that, there's a little bit of a 50-year gap from the time you started writing at 5 until you said, I think I better want to take this seriously at 55 when you were published. I think that's great. We're chatting with Elizabeth St. John. She's the author of The King's Intelligencer, which we're going to find out in a few seconds what that is all about. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast in our 19th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things in San Diego County, whether it's art or whether it's financial literacy, food insecurity, Alzheimer's. They're heavily involved. Joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel. She is the executive director of San Diego Writers Inc. The King's Intelligencer. That's your latest novel, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. What is it about?
Well, it's about...
I'm sure the title has nothing to do with it.
Well, and I actually did fight with my editor about the title because she said, no one will know what an intelligencer is. I said, well, then they can look it up and find out.
Right. That's what Google's for, right?
That's right. It's a story, again, it's set about my own family history. It's about a woman who was there when the missing princes in the tower, who were thought to be murdered by Richard III. It was a story about when their bones were discovered and what happened and who discovered them and what really happened to the princes. So again, it's based on true history, inspired by it. And then I take a little bit of license with some of the fictionalization around it.
Yeah. So was this... I don't know. Maybe this is not the right question to ask.
Let's see.
Oh, let's hear it.
That's right. I'm a former journalist. I can ask any dumb question. Are some books, and I'll start with this one, tougher to write than others? I know our friend Jilly Bean Hall, who just finished a book after a 4 or 5 year sojourn, right?
Yeah.
And research on this person lived in Point Loma and painstakingly details, as we know. And I think her book is coming out
October,
right?
And it's brilliant, by the way.
Yeah,
right.
On the Sundown Sea.
Right, exactly. And I know that was tough for her. It was tough based on the previous 3 that she wrote. Different, I get it. How about this one?
Horrible, brutal. I mean, I threw it away. I wept over it. I thought it was dreadful. And you go through this. And I think that's one of the things as a writer is that you just lay everything on the page. And the research I love. I mean, I could do that
you love
forever.
Historical stuff.
Yeah, and never actually write. That's fine by me.
Sure.
But sinking into the characters, finding the women's voices, a little bit easier when they're in the 17th century because there are records of them. You can find more written information, their letters and so on. But it's still hard to get into that place of being inside their heads and really telling a great story. And it is. It's not about the history at the end of the day. It's about telling a great story.
Yeah. Do you have to switch gears? Because here you are on the history part, which you love doing the research and this and that, and you're finding this. All right, I'm done with that part. Now I got to switch into the writing mode part.
Yeah.
Is it hard to do that? Or is it natural for you?
No, it comes naturally. I think the way I write is that I do most of the research up front. So it becomes embedded in me in the storytelling. And then you have to leave about 90% of it out, but it's in there somewhere. And then you write the story. And maybe you fact check somewhere, but I then go into storytelling mode. And that's sometimes the hard part.
Yeah, I get it. Kristen, you have a few more questions to ask on writing before we pivot to sports.
Oh, God. Help us,
Save me, Kristen.
Save me. Yeah.
You'll like this conversation.
Okay. All right.
All right.
I'm just curious about the research, So if someone has an idea, historically based, obviously, where do you start? What is your process like? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I think it is finding a character. Mm-hmm. So when I wrote the previous book to the King's Intelligence, The Godmother's Secret, I thought, I'd like to find a woman in my family tree. Let me do some research about the family tree. Let me find some interesting people. And I stumbled, and actually our family tree is online. So I put my own name in. I thought, let's see how many Elizabeths there were in my tree. And I found this woman back in the 15th century who not only was the king's aunt, she was actually the godmother to the missing princes. And I went, oh my goodness, I had no idea. Here's an extraordinary story. And then you're off. And then you start finding all the peripheral characters and events that take place around them. So the research comes naturally. I think it's a discipline. I mean, you want to go down every single rabbit hole. And it's very tempting not to, but staying on a timeline, staying on knowing, again, it's a story that you're telling. That's how the research comes about. And then going to places if you can, or at least going online or using Google Maps with the little, with photographs to take you to those places. That's important.
Do you ever find where, boy, have I done enough research? You love to research.
Yes.
You probably can do it 24/7, 365, and that would just be fine with you, as you mentioned earlier. But you go, have I done enough research? I mean, there's got to be a point where you say, I'm done with the research.
Right.
Okay, or else I'll be researching for the next 15 years.
Yes, and you are done with the research to write your story, but you're constantly thinking about it. And even in my first book, in The Lady of the Tower, I had this suspicion that the two families were linked and that there was a marriage that was crucially important, but I could never find it. And I was almost at publication when I kept looking, and suddenly this document came up that proved my theory, which was great because I was still, the historian in me was going, I need to put in the author's note that this is fictionalized. So I could strike that out with confidence because I found the proof. So I don't think you ever stop researching.
Right. So what happened when you found that? Did you halt publication?
Oh, yeah. Well, I just absolutely, first of all, I started dancing and shouting and dancing around the room. But no, I actually was able to adjust the author's note and know that my hunch had been correct, which was great.
Right. And what if you had not found that? And it was like 2 months later, would you have had the second edition would have changed the author's note, correct?
Exactly. And I would have been able to do that as an independent publisher.
Right.
You can go in and update as often as you want. I mean, you don't want to.
Right.
And you certainly wouldn't get into that habit. But
Exactly.
It's nice to have that.
Absolutely. We're chatting with author Elizabeth St. John with the King's Intelligencer. I imagine Amazon, you can pick it up. Is that correct?
Yes, you can.
Great. And is it in Barnes & Noble? Is it in bookstores too?
Yes, it is. It's in Waterstones, Barnes & Noble. You can order it through Warwick's, our local bookstore.
Have you done books? Have you done any book tours yet, or you're going to?
Yes, I've done book tours. In fact, I'm just coming off a blog tour across the world, which has been great fun, which we can do now.
Nice.
And I'm actually doing a book event at Barnes & Noble next weekend.
Okay.
In Encinitas.
Okay, very good. At Barnes & Noble. Okay, Encinitas. We come back from break. We're going to talk sports. And Kristen, I'm going to make sure you do not leave. You're going to ask some questions. Now, actually, it's pretty interesting stuff. We were first chatting about getting you on the show, and we wound up talking about sports, and I was blown away by that. I'm a former sports writer, so that got me really interested. When we return with Elizabeth St. John, I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, nation's longest running community podcast in our 19th year. Joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel. She's the executive director of San Diego Writers, Inc. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of the Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. Though pleased to have in the studio with us author Elizabeth St. John. She just published The King's Intelligencer, joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel, is the executive director of San Diego Writers, Inc. So sports. We're having a conversation about you coming on the show. We'll talk about books. Our good friend Deborah Sarah, Lost in Thought, did a great program. Did you go to the little talk we did?
I did. It was wonderful.
How
Yes.
come you didn't come up and introduce yourself? What is wrong with you?
Well, us writers, we're kind of shy at the end of the day.
Oh, man. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. It was brilliant. Yes.
I had a lot of fun doing this. But we started chatting on the phone and got on the subject of sports. Talk about your sports background, who you worked with, and so forth.
Well, Drew, when you said talk about sports, I thought maybe you meant jousting, royal tennis.
Or football, as you guys across the pond call it. No, talk about the sporting groups you've worked with.
Right. Well, when you get to be my age, you've had quite a varied career, right? And my first job, pretty much when I came to America, was working with the Boston Red Sox. And when I said that to Drew, I could hear his eyes lighting up. I could feel the whole thing.
That's right. And the brain, whatever's in it, crunching and all that.
Yeah.
What'd you do for the Red Sox?
I handled their public relations, and I took them on the road to innumerable baseball banquets throughout New England. We played against the police department on Boston Common. We did all kinds of events, but for me, it was the most extraordinary introduction to America, to small town America, to the passion for sports, to the warmth of the community. I'll never forget those days.
How'd you walk into that job?
Well, I was actually working as a journalist for an organization called Middle East Economic Digest.
Okay.
I was actually a stringer at the United Nations, and a friend of a friend said, "Look, take a break. That's heavy duty work." And it was. It was just during the fall of the Shah. I was reporting on Tehran and so on.
So 1980 about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, take a break. Come and spend the summer up in Boston, and we'll show you what America's all about. So I had the opportunity to do that. Right. So,
who was? I'm trying to think. Who owned the Red Sox at the time?
I don't know who the owners are, but I definitely spent time with some of the great players.
Was Yaz wasn't there?
Yaz was there. It was Yaz's last year. So,
oh boy, I'm gone. All right. Do you want a decaf, or should I?
I'll have
who takes cream in there?
This is good. I'm a little disappointed in you. Let me just
I'm not saying it's not fascinating. I'm just saying I don't have any touch points, so I will leave you to it.
So you see, the key is that if you're in this writer's world, you want to expand your knowledge in these areas of it. Boston, the Red Sox, as everyone knows, in many ways, everyone loves the Red Sox because they had a long history of losing. That changed, when they won some World Series back in the day. The reason why I bring this up, one of my colleagues actually spoke at one of our events, Classroom of the Future Foundation, was Charles Steinberg. And I'm not sure if you know Charles.
Mm-mm.
Charles worked with Larry Lucchino when Larry was an owner of the Orioles. And then he came out to San Diego with John Moores to build Petco Park. He brought Charles with him. Charles is a dentist by nature. And as Larry Lucchino said, would you want this guy working on your teeth? Became the PR guy for the
Love that.
For the Padres. When Lucchino then moved over to Boston, he brought Charles with him and became the PR guy for the. And I think Charles is president of the Pawtucket Red Sox, their AAA affiliate. So you're doing all the PR for the Red Sox. Oh my God! How long did you do that for?
That was for a summer, and then
my goodness,
I kind of enjoyed it. And they said, "Well, there's a winter sport here called football." And I went, "I know football." And no, they went, "Not soccer, football." So then I went and spent the winter on the sidelines with the New England Patriots. But my job there wasn't really actually to do much with the players. It was actually doing the PR with the cheerleaders. So I then had the joy of doing that. But let me just say one thing, Kristen. There is an opportunity here to kind of segue into writing, because one of my favorite moments with the Red Sox was when the Yankees would come to play. So we would talk about rivalry. We would talk about fighting. And I think, maybe intuitively that stuck with me, because as I had to write battle scenes for my work, or as I had to, write from a male point of view in this incredibly sort of fierce environment, some of that works. So I think a writer, you always tuck all these life experiences away.
Absolutely. Well, also, I'm thinking too about all of your experience with PR, and that's one of the things that we always talk about with our book. You've published a book, and now what? So obviously, you took a career of that, and that helped you along the way. Yes,
it did. I wasn't scared of that side of things, and it's actually become a joy, because meeting other authors, meeting bloggers, meeting journalists, it's been a wonderful part of marketing books. And so sports marketing, somewhere along the line.
Nice try, Kristen, trying to get us off track. So we're going to go back to sports.
I tried, Kristen, I tried.
That was not, no, listen, I'm a former sports writer.
I know, Drew.
A billion years ago, small paper.
Go for it, Drew.
Yeah. So of those experiences,
yes,
have you thought about doing historical sports novel?
Well, no. But I do have to say that, looking when you're doing the research, looking at that period as a whole, how did they spend their leisure? What did they do with it? How did they relax? I mean, I was writing about fierce times, civil war, a lot of fighting, a lot of divisiveness going on. So I do think sports and leisure and those pastimes did bring them together, and there were things that I enjoyed in the research. But a history of sports novel?
But
Drew, I have a connection. I actually have a connection.
Okay.
I'm raising my hand.
Let's hear it.
Did you know that my aunt was on the women's baseball team, league, whatever we call it? Like a league of their own? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
He's speechless, Kristen. I can see that.
No,
He's like this dumb girl that I keep inviting.
Yeah.
There's my connection to baseball.
That's softball.
That's a good.
Yeah,
No, it's not softball.
No, it was fast pitch. You know what? And those guys were iconic back in the day.
Exactly.
They were.
And so forth.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Women's voices again. I mean,
100%.
All right, that's all I got.
To me, when you talk about the history of sports, I like to talk about history during sports.
Yes.
And, some of the great documentaries, Ross Greenberg is a producer out of HBO. I'm not sure if you know him. And he always puts on these iconic documentaries. And they're always about what is the time like in America at the time. So there's a very famous hit that beat my daughter. I wasn't born yet, but I considered I was born. The hit heard around the world. Bobby Thompson hit a home run to beat the Dodgers in the playoffs in 1951. And everybody talks about it, whether you were born there or not. This great documentary is talking about the times in 1950, right after World War II, how things were set up. Well, like Boston and New York, which hate each other's guts and have the history to hate each other's guts because of, Babe Ruth and the same thing with the Dodgers. If you think about it, in New York, so you got the iconic Dodgers, the Yankees and the Giants all playing within a few miles of each other. Willie Mays and all this business. And to me, that's the history part of it. And we always look at those old films and we will laugh because these guys are dressed up in fedoras and, dressed up in suits and all that business. But I think because you love to do history, it'd be interesting to do some type of, and some of the greatest sports writers were novelists. Ring Lardner, I'm not sure if you know who he is, look him up if you don't know who he is, was a great playwright. And a lot of these guys were great writers. And so forth. And when you were doing in Boston, Dan Shaughnessy covered. Did you know Dan?
I didn't know, but I know the name. Yeah,
cover for the Boston Globe and so forth. So I'm going to be working on Elizabeth Haver's next book. It's going to blow you away.
I'll do this.
It's going to be something with sports in it. That's going to be my goal.
Well, maybe as you're speaking here, I'm thinking, rounders was the English sport that baseball came from.
Right.
Of course, we have rugby, which we won't even go there about.
Right.
Rugby. So maybe I can, pursue that a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm from the
for the story side of it.
From the story side of it.
Right.
Because it's just fascinating, to watch some of these old things. And I think maybe this is a little bit off topic, but would love to get your 2 cents on it, especially yours on this. A friend of mine used to be the principal at Bell Junior High School. It was the largest junior high west of the Mississippi. Huge sports guy. But when I was a kid, watching the Dodgers in 1963, I couldn't read enough about Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and all the players in the 1910s and all that. So I said to him, Norm, are the kids at your school, whether they're into skateboarding or surfing, do they even care about the history of the sport? Do they? Nope. They could care less.
No, that's sad.
And that's my point, is that, you love to learn about these things about, I was more fascinated sometimes about what happened 25 years ago.
But I think that's where historical fiction comes in, is that you can take things like that. I mean, you're involved in that organization. It's the Historical Novel Society. Did I butcher that? Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see all sorts of topics there, right? And that's such a gateway for so many people, not just for kids too, but for people that are just not readers. Historical fiction can be this sort of like gateway drug, if you will, into reading all sorts of things.
We're all humans. We all have the same feelings. We still have the same aspirations. And whether you were jousting 500 years ago and your life depended on the king's favor, or whether, you just hit the winning, run in the World Series, you're still a human aspiring to do that. And I think through history, through telling those stories, especially finding the ones that aren't perhaps well known. For me, those are the best. Those are the best. Those observers of history, those people who I write about, who were there, they knew all of these people, they knew the players, but they perhaps have a slightly different take on it.
Yeah,
I think that's important.
Yeah, and especially in those eras, you were covering Yaz, toward the end of twilight of his career and all that business. But I mean, we're talking to players in the 30s and 40s. I mean, there's no internet, obviously. There's hardly anything for good TV, which is relatively new in this area. So that, and the crowds would go to the game because you couldn't see them anywhere else. You had to go to the game.
And the players' relationships with the crowd were amazing.
100%.
I mean, people like Yaz or even, Jimmy Rice would come over. I mean, they Winfield, they would be there for the crowd as much as for the game.
Well, these guys, and by the way, you didn't know we were doing a sports show, did you?
No, but that's right. I've been around enough that I'm not that surprised.
Our Bayside folks aren't going to mind that we talk about that. But,
we'll get you in on the sports conversation soon. Don't you worry.
Exactly. But it's long been said, so the players that played in New England, Green Bay, Baltimore, Colts in the 60s, they had second jobs. They made $6,000 a year playing football, and they weren't guaranteed they were going to play next year. So they had to take jobs in this, selling cars or whatever.
Absolutely.
Of course, now it's a different animal,
It was, but no, even in my time, for the players who just, maybe come up from the minors, if I could get them $1,000 for a baseball banquet, they would be in heaven because
100%.
They weren't getting, that recognition or that big money.
Yeah, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
So you heard her first on the Spotlight Show. The next novel will be co-written by Elizabeth St. John and Drew Schlosberg. I'll do the foreword. She'll do all the work on it. In all seriousness, what a delight to meet you and chat with you. We hope you come back on again. Are you working on another novel?
The kernel of the idea is there.
Okay, good. So we're going to look forward to hearing when that kernel becomes an absolute popcorn or whatever the case may be. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. We will look forward to having our paths cross again, whether in the studio or somewhere else.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you. It was a joy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Author Elizabeth St. John, get her book, The King's Intelligencer. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast in our 19th year. As always, thank you so much, Kristen Fogel, for your insights, especially when it comes to authors and writing. Kristen's the executive director of San Diego Writers, Inc. And to our audience, we hope you enjoyed this Mission Fed sponsored show.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.